Okay, I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Ad Hoc Transition Planning Committee meeting of the City of San Diego Commission on Police Practices, a meeting of January 27th, 2023. And in attendance are myself, I'm Doug Case. I am acting chair of the commission and chair of this committee. We have commissioners Nancy Vaughn and Diana Dent, both of whom are members of the commission. We have Kate Yevandetti from Women Occupy, who is our liaison to San Diegans for Justice. And we have Elena Conde, who is our executive assistant, and David Niemeyer from CPS HR firm. And so we'll go ahead and scroll down on the agenda. And the first item is public comment. I see that, Dwayne is here, so you can go ahead and promote Dwayne. And Dwayne Bennett is our outside counsel. And I see we have a couple of members of the public attending as attendees. And so if either of you would like to make a public comment on a non-agenda item, you can raise your hand now. Okay, and seeing none, we will proceed with updates. Charmaine and Robin are working on the budget documents. There is a meeting coming up, I think on February 16th, that not positive that date, but it's around that time, before the city's, and I forget the name of the committee, but it's like the executive budget committee. And so that is in process. Elena, do you know if they have been able to make the appointment of the community engagement coordinator yet? Or are we still waiting on?
I actually do not know. I can confirm with Charmaine.
Okay. And so last week we were waiting on, I think it was reference checks and so forth by HR, but I have not heard an announcement of the person who was selected. The supervising investigator and the deputy executive director. Let me have David give an update on those searches.
Sure, thanks, Doug. So the supervising investigator, we're continuing to do some of the additional outreach. We have netted a handful of candidates. A couple of them, I think, are ones we may want to be looking at closer. So I will be in touch with the subcommittee next week to discuss proceeding with that. The deputy executive director, as you remember, we restarted that. Just last week, we've already had 31 applicants. So that's off to a good start. And that's what I have to report right now.
Okay. With regard to that search, should we use the same, because that one will also be one where we will be using the community panel to make recommendations. Should we use the same community panel as we have for the previous position?
I mean, that's I think up to the commission, but I'm certainly comfortable with that.
Okay. Nancy and Kate and Diana, do you have any input on that?
It sounds okay with me.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Which is good because we don't have a community outreach person now to put together a new panel. And so I'll see if maybe we can have the staff confirm with the panelists whether they're willing to continue in that position. Lena has her hand raised.
Sorry, I had the answer for you regarding the CEC position, but I can tell you after if you'd like.
Okay, well, unless you're able to announce a name, you can tell me after.
Okay, I'll tell you after.
Okay. The Nothing, and probably we can actually take the C off of future agendas. Yeah, because the operating procedures that we're looking at are for the future operating procedures, not the interim ones. And office space, things are moving forward, but it has to go, the contract has to go to city council, and the last email that I saw looks like it doesn't appear that we'd be able to occupy the space until June. Nothing new on standing rules, community outreach. I will talk about my meetings with, I think last week I had already met with D4, is that correct? And
Yes.
just, yes, and this past week I had an opportunity to meet with D9. But let me go over any items that we need legal counsel on. So let me kind of maybe circle back to those. And in terms of development of operating procedures, I don't think we have anything new since last week. Nancy and I did talk about putting together a template for the permanent commission to consider for their bylaws. And I have not had a chance to work on the operating procedure for case review yet. But let's scroll up a little bit and well, a couple of items that we had discussions with Dwayne at our cabinet meeting is the ad hoc committee in the future. And it looks like Nancy needs to be promoted to a panelist. She must have gotten demoted and now promoted. And it may be easier for us to, from a efficiency perspective, especially since we are now going to have meetings in person. If we continue to, even though we are an ad hoc committee, we've essentially made ourselves a standing committee, especially since we have been operating under the Brown Act. And Dwayne's suggestion was that we disband the committee, but continue to meet as needed to deal with issues like operating procedures and other things, but to do it on an ad hoc basis, and to we can invite community members like Kate to participate in those ad hoc discussions. And so it would be more of a informal meeting as opposed to our structured meeting that we have now with an agenda that is sent out and posted and so forth. And so, Dwayne, do you want to say anything about that?
Sure, Acting Chair. Can you all hear me? I'm out of state, so I'm just there by telephone. Am I sounding okay?
We sound fine.
Okay, great. So the discussion was in light of the expiration of the teleconferencing, or the ability to teleconference, February the 10th, you all in your current structure and format would have to start meeting in person whenever you met. And, you know, it dawned on me that now that you are in a transitionary period where new commissioners are being considered and could be appointed at any point in time, the planning aspect of this committee, as you all have been operating, is a function that is no longer necessary. The new commission is coming in, there are new things that are going on, and this committee, as an ad hoc committee, is of a limited period of time. You have a limited future. Let me put it like that. It's uncertain as to what the city council is going to do with commissioners. It's uncertain as to when the new committee is going to be impaneled, how they're going to proceed. And so you've been functioning more as you call yourselves an ad hoc transition planning committee, but you've been acting more as a standing committee, as you said. You've been acting more as a standing committee, a committee that has regular meetings, a committee that notices its meetings through the Brown Act, a meeting that is public, and you've been doing it appropriately. What you've been doing, because you have had continuous jurisdiction for a year or over a year, is you truly have been a standing committee, even though you call yourself an ad hoc committee. So you've been operating perfectly within the guidelines of the law. But it's no longer necessary for you to do so. And as long as you have a true ad hoc committee under the Brown Act, is a committee that consists of less than a quorum of commissioners solely. So you would have less than a quorum of commissioners, and that would constitute the ad hoc committee. You could invite and involve the public however you like. You can, whenever you meet, you can meet informally as an ad hoc committee. You do not have to notice your meetings under the Brown Act. You could meet, you could continue to teleconference as an ad hoc committee, as a true sole ad hoc committee. You could teleconference, but the difference between a standing committee and an ad hoc committee is a standing committee has a long jurisdiction. So you have continuous jurisdiction over an issue, whereas an ad hoc committee only has limited jurisdiction for a limited period of time. And in light of the new commission being appointed, new commissioners being appointed, you can start functioning more as an ad hoc committee because because things are going to change very, very shortly. So if you are if the commission were to create a new ad hoc committee for a limited period of time and a limited duration consisting of less than a quorum of commissioners, that committee could meet, you could teleconference, you could meet informally, you could meet by telephone, et cetera, give you multiple or just a multitude of flexibility.
Okay, any questions about that? And so hearing none, then we'll propose at our next meeting. And I'm not sure, Alina, do we plan on having a meeting on February 7th, or when is the next commission meeting going to be?
Then the next commission or I'm sorry, or ad hoc. Sorry, it was the ad hoc meeting.
Next week.
So
No, the next meeting of the full commission.
of the full commission. So we were hoping to get it scheduled on the 28th. We've been looking at
Tuesday.
possible locations to fit our department staff and then the commissioners. So we have one spot in mind for the 28th, but we're having issues with trying to getting the Wi-Fi and everything kind of set up there. But it is planned for the 28th.
Okay, so is there going to be a full commission meeting on February 7th?
We do
Sure.
Sorry, can you hear me? It keeps quitting unexpectedly.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, the plan is to have a closed or a regular session meeting on this.
Sorry.
Okay, well, go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, I was talking to Charmaine this morning. She said that she was trying to get a quorum or that you all would be trying to get a meeting, the next meeting for February the 7th on behalf of the full board. So I'm not sure about, Alina knows better than I in terms of whether or not you're trying something for the 28th, but I know that there were plans to try to see if a full meeting could be convened on February the 7th, which would be the last time we'll be able to teleconference.
Yes, sorry.
In this current format, I'm sorry.
Yes, virtually. Yeah, we're missing one to make quorum. I keep getting kicked off for some reason, but yes, we're missing one to get quorum, and then once we have that, then we should be able to schedule that virtual meeting.
Okay, and so at our meeting, then we can discuss how to proceed, but my suggestion is we do what Dwayne suggests and disband this committee and put together another committee that would be a true ad hoc committee.
I have a
And
question. Would that meeting on the 7th be a closed session or an open session?
I think we're looking at doing both.
We usually don't do open sessions on the first meeting of the month. That's why I asked.
Yeah, but since we weren't able to get a quorum for our last meeting, this would be in lieu of that meeting. And anyway, so the new committee would work on issues like operating procedures, budget, office space, and staffing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the big issue is the nomination process.
Okay, and that's but that may not be part of the ad hoc committee moving forward, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay, I'm leaving in 5 minutes.
Okay, let me throw out an idea. Well, first of all, I'm going to give Kate an update of our meeting with. Well, I don't think that I met. I'm trying to remember whether we've had a meeting of this committee since I met with D4. Have we?
Yes, you
did.
reported on it last week.
Okay, and so
It was very discouraging.
okay, and then well, the meeting with D9. The council member or council president was not able to attend in person. I met with Marianne, but we had a long conversation. The meeting lasted 45 minutes. It was very helpful, but there's a lot of things that they don't have answers to. They are, what I can tell you is that they are planning on docketing it most likely for March, early March. They have not selected a date yet. It probably will be a long meeting because they are going to go through the process that is specified, where they're going to vote individually on each of the 25 seats. So there'll be at least 25 votes, and more likely more than 25 votes, because if nobody gets 5 votes on the first round, then they have a process for dropping people and revoting until they get somebody.
So what's being docketed? The discussion of the process itself,
No,
or do they expect to have all the applicants?
well, the applicants are due by February 15th.
Okay, so
They will-
their applicants that they're screened and vetted, and the CPP is also going to screen and vet and recommend the same crew of applicants.
And that's what I want to talk about in a second. But
Well, I
Nomina-
guess I'm just antsy because I have to leave.
yeah, and nominations, nominations have to be made by February 15th. It has to be the way the form is set up, it's nominated by form. So if somebody meets more than one category, they need to be nominated in each of the categories for which they qualify. So for example, I would qualify for 3 categories, 3 of the 4 categories. I'm not a youth, but
You act like it.
but I do live in a city council district. My precinct does qualify for low or medium, low to moderate income. And I would qualify for the at-large. And so if I wanted to be considered for all 3 of those, I'd have to have 3 separate nominations. So the people who are nominating need to know that the form is for one category. And if they want to nominate somebody for multiple categories or have them considered for multiple categories, they need to nominate them in each of the categories, which is a awkward way of doing it. I asked them about public comment, and they don't know whether the public comment will be for each of the 25 seats separately, or whether they're going to have public comment at the beginning. It depends on how the agenda is set up, they said. I asked them in what order they're going to do them. And they had not thought about that. And so that's a question that Marianne will pose to the council president. Like I said, they're planning to do all 25 in the same meeting and realize it'll be a long meeting. They indicated that council members after will not get a copy of all of the application material until it has been docketed. And that any community organization can make a nominations through that same, same nomination portal. And then there comes the issue of what the commission itself is going to do, because we won't have an operating procedure for making nominations. And I have a suggestion. And my suggestion is that instead of making nominations, we wait until the end of the nominating period and see who has been nominated, and then send a letter of endorsement to people who we think would be, identifying people that we think have qualifications to serve.
Well, what's the process of that letter? I mean, we had talked about having a community panel, and at this point, there's no community input.
Exactly,
So,
and that's what I wanted to discuss today.
okay, well, I'm going to turn it, I have to go.
I
And
know.
I think Nancy is probably on the same page that I'm on. And I think you know what I think, that the CPP has to come up with the process of taking all those applicants and vetting them and putting them through a community panel with recommendations from the community and not just from the current interim CPP. That's my vote, for whatever it's worth, since I don't get a vote. But I'm also concerned about the fact that the city council appears that they're going to go through this bizarre process without even any public comment about some alternative process. So
Right.
I think that the community organizations that we work with will probably have to do some organizing for non-agenda public comment and meetings with council members, because this is just a nutsy process and should not be happening that way. And with that, I will say goodbye to everybody.
Okay, thanks, Kate. And then it raises an issue with that maybe Dwayne can help us with, that we discussed at the council meeting, is whether if we were to have a committee that say called a screening committee, for lack of a better term, it could be an ad hoc committee as long as it wasn't a committee that had a majority of the commission on it. But the only voting members in that ad hoc committee would be the commissioners. We could invite the community people to give us input, but the commissioners would be the voting people.
That's correct. That's correct, Doug.
And so if we were to do, well, first of all, rather than try to make nominations ourselves, do people here think that it makes sense to wait until we see who the applicants are, and send a letter from the commission to the city council saying, based on the applicants, these are the people we would endorse for appointment?
I have a question, Doug. What's the difference between applying, because there's an application process, and nomination?
They're the same thing.
They're the same thing. So when I go and apply, I'm nominating myself.
Exactly.
Holy mackerel. So I would have to apply 3 times if
Well,
I
wait a second.
apply
Or
to-
maybe you raise a good question. And so let me see what it says.
Because I've only ever heard about an application process.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's an application process. You're right. I'm sorry. I misspoke. People can apply, and then people who have applied can be nominations can be made by members of the council and by community organizations.
From the pool.
Just a
of
quick
people who have
question.
applied?
Do I? Yeah, go
From the-
ahead.
From the
So-
pool of
so-
people who have applied?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Dwayne had a question.
no, Diana.
Oh, Diana had a question.
So this is getting so confusing, and I did kind of watch the other meeting. So if I nominate myself, however that process is, how does the nomination from the community members, all of those nominations still have to go through applying and all of that and information, or how does that work?
Okay, let me just, okay, it says all candidate, this is on the application. It says, all candidates interested in serving on the commission must apply. This form will remain open and applicants can be accepted on a rolling basis. Members are appointed by the city council in accordance with city council rules and policies, and making appointments. The city council may consider written nominations made by the public and community-based organizations, as long as the nominees accept their nomination in writing prior to the city council consideration. City council may also consider nominations from the commission. And then reading the public and community-based organizations may submit to one nominee for each seat. The council shall only consider written nominations made by the public and community-based organizations if nominees accept the nomination. And each council member may also submit one nominee for each seat. In the appointment process, the council shall submit a nomination packet, which will include the nomination memo, a copy of the completed onboard application, and any additional information in support of such nominee. And so as I'm reading this, and I can get clarification of this, a application is not a nomination. So people apply, but then they have to be nominated by a city council member or a community-based organization or by the commission.
By the 15th of February.
For making nominations, yes. And
For application also, to file an application?
the deadline. Yes, that's, well, the nomination deadline is February the 15th. And that is also the nomination deadline and the application deadline are one and the same.
Then I would say,
No,
Doug,
actually,
we don't
I take
wanna
it back.
wait.
It does say that it says that applications will be accepted on a rotating basis.
What does that mean?
So maybe it means that you can apply even after the 15th, but
I
guess
wouldn't bet on it.
yeah, my thought is that
First come, first serve.
that we would have a process, and so that we have a process so that the commission would look at the people who have applied by say February 15th, and that we review those through a process which we need to decide and have a letter of endorsement of candidates sent by the commission prior to the commission meeting where they will be making the appointment.
Well, I think it's a nice thought, but personally, I think they're going to ignore it because it's not anything that they've mentioned. The process for getting nominations they want done by the 15th of February. If we don't do it by then, they're just going to ignore us.
Well, See, we would not be nominating people who have not already been nominated, I guess. And so I guess we would look for the list of, we'd get the list of nominees. Otherwise, we're gonna, I mean, we don't know. What else would you suggest, Nancy?
I have to think that one through. I don't have an answer. I mean, I think we're being cut out pretty well, pretty effectively by these people already.
Okay.
It-
So actually, the difference would be we could not propose a name that's not already been nominated after the 15th.
Right.
But, but it doesn't preclude us from looking at people who have been nominated and providing input. Diane, do you have thoughts?
I'm like Nancy, I mean, if nominations are coming from the city council and from organizations, it's just, and all this has to be done by the 15th. It's pretty clear how this is going to go.
Yes, what I'm suggesting is that would give us, say, until our open meeting in February, that we would not be able to put forward any additional names that have not already been nominated by a community organization or by a city council member. But we would provide feedback on the nominees.
Okay, you've talked to all these city council people, Doug. What is your feeling for how much weight they might or might not give an endorsement from this commission?
Well, we didn't talk about that process because everybody was supportive, even the council president, of our initial proposal. But everybody was deferring to
Yes, I
D4
know.
since they were the sponsor of the creation of the commission. And so I would sense that they would take that into consideration. I mean, the council president pro tem, said that, the commission can make nominations, and everybody's saying that the commission can make nominations. And so that doesn't seem to be in doubt, even without an operating procedure. The question is, can we make nominations, or do we want to endorse people who have been nominated? And I guess the difference is if there's somebody who we like, who has applied, and they haven't been nominated by a city council member, or
We should jump on it
okay, then
before the 15th.
okay, and
But
how
I
would we
don't
do
know how
that?
you find out who those people are anyway. Is there a list of people who have applied?
There is, and do we have access to the applications? Alina?
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button. Yeah, so I have a spreadsheet already made up of all of those who have applied. And we have all of the information sent over from their application. So yeah, we have all that in our drive.
Okay.
So
And
we'll continue to update as more people. Okay, good. All
Correct.
right.
okay, but how would we then, if we were going to make a nomination by the 15th, how would we go about doing that, and doing it with community input?
Mm-mm. You don't have time.
Because we'd have to clearly there wouldn't be time for it.
How would we see the list?
I can ask Charmaine to see how she wants me to go about sharing it, or give you access. Maybe we can do something on the Google Drive. I'll reach out to Charmaine.
That and would have to be done at a open meeting. So we'd have to have and the only open meeting we had before the 15th is on February the 7th, if we can get a quorum there.
Doug, I almost think we're gonna have to do this as individual commissioners. In other words, I think we're gonna have to go through as individuals and find people that we like and not have it come from the commission as a formal thing, but from individual people who can say, I'm on the commission, I know what the job is, and this is a person who could do it well or whatever. I don't know what else you can.
Yeah, Alina, can you pull up the implementation ordinance?
Yes, 1 second.
Because the materials are making reference to the no, it has a comma there. It says nominations shall also be considered from the public, community-based organizations, or the commission. So I guess
How about this? How about if, as individuals, we go through and do written nominations of people that we find that we like, and then after the fact, we can, as a commission, do an endorsement.
okay, but we can only we only be able to endorse those people who've been nominated. So the only people who've been nominated will be considered.
And then you have to get a written acceptance of that nomination.
Yeah, so let me look at something quickly. So it's
We have the strikeout version on here, right? Strikeout ordinance, okay. Doug, I'm sorry. So Evie, is it Kasauer? She has her hand up, just so you know.
okay. Just 1 second. Okay, I'm trying to look at the city's nomination site. Why don't I go ahead and have Evie speak while I'm trying to pull this up.
Okay.
Evie, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, ever since we talked about getting people to apply and then finally came out with, I mean, if there was some stumbling at the very beginning, we have been suggesting and sending it out to people. And that's not a nomination, telling them to apply. That is not a nomination process. And if you were limiting it to a nomination process, you have cut all those people out that we already from organizations have been telling to just go and apply.
Okay,
Totally unclear.
I don't hear a thing.
Anyone who's applied should be in a pool. to be
okay,
looked
but
at.
the city council is only going in the Nancy race is a nomination separate from a
Application.
in the application, and the answer is yes. And what I was wondering is whether or not members of the public can make a nomination.
Well, I think someone who applies is nominating themselves, as you said in the first place.
You know, but it's a different process for application than nomination, which is why I wanted Elena, were you able to pull up the okay, so you
Yeah.
can scroll down to
I don't see how, with the mess as to how this has been unrolled and the lack of clarity, that you can not look at people who have just sent in applications and see if in fact they should be in the group that then gets reviewed.
Okay, anyway, so,
In other words, they should not have to have a letter from anybody to be able to apply, and they may be terrific. There may be someone who fits into a category that you really want and need.
okay, but the
So
city
if-
council's, yeah, but we're talking about the city council's procedures, and the city council will only look at nominations. So I was gonna go down, if you can go down to,
Well, they
fine.
can be nominated from this group of community people. And
right,
some of you who then look at the total group and sift that out and nominate them from there to the council of however many they want, or you want to send to the council to look at.
okay, so let me just,
Just trying to see how people who are very good, who have gone and sent in an application because that's what they were asked to do, should not be left out of the process of being screened.
okay, I hear that. So,
I guess that's the way I present it. So, the nomination process from an organization may have a letter, may not, but they have supposedly, we were told to talk to the people before we suggest that they send an application in.
okay, let's scroll down to it. Let's see who can make nominations. Going to, hold on a second here.
It sounded when we read that, we meaning Kate and I and whoever else on Women Occupy, read that, it sounded like they were cutting out the community. And so the community has been trying to get people to apply who they feel would be good people. So they are just going to have applications. They're not going to have some big formal nomination.
Okay, I hear you, I hear Evie. Okay, so we got your public comment. Can you scroll down and see if you can find, can you do a control find for nominate? Okay, go to the next one. Oh, then go to the next one. You went, put nomination. Okay, keep on going down till we get to the ordinance, because the ordinance is not a separate document. Okay. I'll keep on going. This is the city council policy. Okay, here we are. Stop it there. Members are appointed by the city council in accordance with the city council rules and policies, and making appointments. The city council may consider written nominations made by the public and community-based organizations, as long as nominees accept their nominations in writing prior to city council consideration. Okay. And what I was wondering whether or not the word public, I think, well, let me see how Dwayne reads that. Dwayne, does that mean to you that any member of the public may make a nomination?
That's the way it reads. I mean, if you just look at the plain reading of the ordinance, or the plain wording of the ordinance, that's the way it appears to be written. It says, and if you look at it, it says the council may consider written nominations made by the public and community-based organizations. So it seems like they have broadened it to include members of the public and separately community-based organizations, which include members of the public.
Okay.
So that would mean any member, it's not qualified. So that would mean any member of the public could make a nomination.
Including an applicant?
That which would be, yeah.
That's an
I
interesting.
guess if they were, I guess you as an applicant, you could nominate yourself as an applicant, I guess. It is a little vaguely written in that regard, but if you just read it in its plain sense, it says that the council may consider written nominations made by the public. So some member of the public could, I guess, nominate themselves.
And then write an acceptance right back. So
Yeah, as long
And,
as you
and
accept
what
it.
does consider mean? Does that mean that their name gets put forward?
That means the council may consider, that means the council may evaluate or deliberate on the denomination, on written nominations made by members of the public. Yeah,
or may
I
not.
wish I could help you,
Yeah.
but I'm just reading what is there.
Or they may not, Doug. So
Yes, I guess that's the question we need to have considered. But having said that, what is still your suggestion?
what, mine?
Mine or Diana's? So I hear Nancy saying that she would like to make nominations prior to the 15th, and Diana is saying,
Nancy, are you? Or I'm not clear on what you're thinking.
My
is.
thinking is that I would look at the applicants who have applied. If I saw somebody I thought was good, I would make a nomination of that person as an individual, as a member of the public, and also as a member of CPP. Write my nomination and hope that that person writes an acceptance. And then afterwards, when we get after the 15th and before they do their long election meeting, that we would look at the people who were nominated as a group, as CPP, and add additional endorsements on the hope that they have public comment for each of the people that they vote on. That we would have that added level of confidence that we could express as a group. I just don't see us having time to be a group to go through 40 or 50, however many people who have applied and make sure that we are writing a nomination for each of them.
Gotcha.
okay,
I like that.
okay, so you're suggesting that members of the commission individually nominate people. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
So I guess in order to make endorse candidates, we need to know who has been nominated.
And that's what Alina's going to make sure we have access to.
Well, but it's a different process.
Yes, that's the confusing part.
It's
You
a
can
different.
apply, but not be nominated.
And that's what I'm trying to
Am
prevent.
I misunderstanding that? That I can apply.
Yes, that's
but
correct.
That doesn't mean that I've been nominated so that I could accept the nomination. So
Well, and
that's,
I don't think we have access to the nomination form. Is that correct, Alina?
Currently it's in the drive, which I don't believe you have access to. So hopefully, I believe I'll
I mean,
to this.
does the office have access? I know the office has access to the applications, but the nominations is a different
Yeah.
website. And we don't, do we have access to that website?
I will ask Charmaine. I have yet to see it myself, but maybe they're sending it to her instead.
And I can,
That's the point at which I think as individuals, we want to make sure that anybody we see who has applied gets a nomination, and it doesn't matter if they get multiple nominations. But if I went through that list and I found 6 people I thought were good as applicants, I would want to make nominations for all 6 of those, even if Diana went and did the same 6.
So Chair, can I just ask one question? And maybe I'm confused, but I just want to make sure. I just want to give you an alternate reading, perhaps, of that ordinance. the way I assume that what the council or what the ordinance is saying is that anybody can apply
Yes.
for appointment. Okay, anybody can apply. And I assume that the city council, whatever its procedure will be, will consider anybody who applies, period. That's one category. But then it seems that they're also saying that any member of the public can nominate somebody who, for example, has not applied.
Yeah.
And as long as that person accepts the nomination, then the city council will throw them in the applicant pool. But
I would
it doesn't, am I wrong about that? But it doesn't seem
yeah,
that they're asking for both of them, right?
well, except that the applicants won't, I mean, only nominees will get considered. In other words,
Okay,
if you're
so
not,
that's the confusing part about the ordinance, because it appears that, like, for example, if I'm an individual and say I don't have anybody to nominate, I'm just an individual, and the way the city typically look at commissions is they have to consider an applicant for a commission. You shouldn't have to be nominated to apply. I mean, that's almost saying that unless somebody confirms you as an applicant, you cannot be considered. There's a problem with that. So, typically what a city would do would take, if you apply for the planning commission, for example, you apply and they vet you and they say, okay, you're on or you're not. But you don't have to also apply and then be nominated. You might apply and somebody might endorse you and say, hey, I think that person's a good person. But you shouldn't have to apply and then be nominated. I think that what they're trying to say, and maybe it's not, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe they're not as artful, is they should be in the ordinance. I think that what they're trying to say is, look, anybody can apply. Dwayne Bennett can apply for the commission, period. That's it. Okay, and if Dwayne Bennett applies, he's going to be considered as an applicant. But also, Dwayne Bennett could nominate Doug Case to be on the commission. And if Doug Case says, okay, I'll accept that, then Doug, we're going to throw you in the applicant pool too. That's the way I read it, although.
yeah, but
And
I mean,
I don't think
but the city council policy makes reference to nominees,
Not applicants.
not applicants. It says that
I
the
wish
council
it
member
was the
will
way
call
you're saying.
on each candidate whose name appears on the docket as a nominee to make a presentation to the council in support of his or her candidacy for appointment.
See, that's, and I hear you on that, and I'm reading it, but I just don't see how it makes it. That means that if a person is an individual and they are not quote unquote nominated, they cannot be considered for appointment to the commission. And that's the weird part. I mean,
Yeah, so let me get clarification from the council president's office. Because it seems like people could then just nominate themselves.
Yes.
well,
Right.
you should
But
be,
even so, if
you
a
should be
person
able
thinks
to
that,
apply.
because I'm sorry, I'm just confused because I'm thinking if a person thinks that they have applied for this position, that they will then be considered based on the information that they're
They're
provided for the
considered, but it looks like
application.
the city council is only going to consider those people, is only going to consider those people who have a nomination. So we need to clarify
Right.
whether or
That's
not
the
a
issue.
application is considered a nomination. It doesn't look like it is.
That's true.
That means that it looks like if the city does it like that, it looks like the city is rejecting anybody who individually would apply unless they get also somebody's rubber
To
stamp or
nominate them
pat
as
on the
well.
back.
What can they,
which is a strange process.
can they self-nominate?
Why not?
Yeah, and see, that's another part, that the way the ordinance is written, yes, but it's all strange, so there maybe.
Yeah,
maybe we get some
I agree.
clarity.
It's strange. We didn't propose this process.
Right.
Let me get a clarification of that.
Okay.
And so, so what Nancy is suggesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we encourage commissioners to nominate people who they see on the applicant list who they think are qualified,
Mhm.
and to perhaps even nominate people who aren't an applicant. And they probably would need to contact them first to tell them I'm nominating you, because the person has to accept the nomination. And then in the commission itself can send a letter of support for public comment after the nomination period is concluded.
For the public, for the public meeting where they're going to do the voting, if they allow public comment.
Okay, and
But
then
that letter, Doug, would be from the commission, the whole group
it
of
would be
us.
from the commission. Okay, and then the question arises, it would require a vote of the commission. We could get public input.
Right,
But we could, and we could have an ad hoc committee that would look at those applications or nominations and make recommendations. The tricky thing is that we have members of the commission who are appointing, who are applying.
yes.
And so we will have to vote on, and the only people who can vote would be the commissioners. And so it would be okay, well, let me try to find out whether or not we can we'll clarify the difference between an application and nomination and whether people can self-nominate and whether we would have an access to the nomination process. If not, we would know people have been nominated by the commissioners because they
Right.
will have, done that. And so, and people can also notify us. And so we can have a meeting where people who we know have been nominated, we can put forth a list of endorsements, a letter of endorsement to be read at the city council meeting.
So then my only other question, Doug, has to do with if I wanted to nominate somebody like Doug Case who hasn't applied, if he hasn't, does that person then have to go back and fill out an application?
Let me ask that question as well.
Okay, thank you.
And
Diana, am I making sense?
and so
Yes, Nancy, you're making perfect sense.
Thank
Okay.
you.
and so clarify that an application is not considered a nomination, find out whether people can self-nominate, and if somebody has been nominated who has not applied, what is the process? Does the city contact them and say, do you accept the nomination? Or do they have to apply? And I don't think there was an application deadline. There was a nomination deadline.
Oh, there's an application deadline too.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure I've looked at that process.
Okay.
I haven't looked at it, so I guess I better.
Okay. So I think we probably want to meet again next week and decide how to proceed. Is there anything else we need to go over today?
Doug, I think LB has had her hand up for a while, so I don't know.
I
There's
think it was from
another
before,
comment.
but were you raising your hand again, Evie? Because she's already,
Yeah.
given
Yeah,
public
I would
comment.
just like to know, in what you have just been suggesting, you and Nancy, how have you included the community?
Well, I think the process would be that we would have a community, people involved in a ad hoc screening committee. that
The
we would invite-
screening of whoever we've decided is okay to be screened, whether it's just the applicants or then see, my thought is that if you have that kind of a screening group, then that group could nominate who goes on to the council, and therefore it would cut down on the people who you could weed out and not have to have the council look at. So as long as you're including members of a community in a screening group and not just your committee, not just your CPP commissioner.
Yeah, well,
then
and
that-
again, to clarify,
Yeah.
we would involve them, but the vote would be based on, only the commissioners would have a vote
For what?
on the recommendations, the endorsements.
Right.
What would be the point of having the community involved?
To get their input. And so we would have, we would invite the members of the public to participate and give input on the,
Right, well, why?
anyway, Evie, this
Community
is,
was involved in the outreach person. That's not how it was done. They had the vote, actually. They were the people who had screened it down and had a vote. Then how they screened it down got turned in for some final vote.
Totally different issue.
So,
Well, I don't know why the commissioners should be picking the other commissioners without the community being involved in who is being sent.
okay, well, I'm not, again, our proposed process included that we will not be able to put forth that operating procedure. And so our procedure that we had envisioned will not be considered. And that was the city council's decision. That was not our decision, Evie. And so we're trying to come up with a alternative that at least will allow some input from the commission and the community.
Okay, so what I'm left with then, Doug, is that you're going to ask for community input on the screening of the large number or whatever number of people that have applied and or been nominated or both.
Well, I think it would just be nominees.
No,
but-
not. You shouldn't hear me. I mean, this is really messy and the public's going to be up in arms about it. You've got.
Avi, we didn't design the process. The city council designed the process. We're trying to.
But we are recommending and I'm suggesting that the community is going to be upset about it. So when you're going back to clarify, the application is on the website and everybody who wants to can apply. And anyone who applies should be looked at in some way or other, discarded if they don't meet requirements or don't look terrible or whatever. But that is what you do when you put out an application, you look at them. You don't decide, oh, only people who are going to be nominated with a letter get looked at. That is a very, and I'm sure that's not what the HR would intend. That's not how you look for employees or for people who are working for you. So many of those may have had the suggestion from community people. Go ahead and apply. If you are interested in this, we think you should do it. You should apply and make a good person. They may not have anything written. Sent in.
Well, yeah, again, maybe that was the process we had recommended, but that's not the process the city council agreed upon. So I will ask those questions and then we can decide next Friday how to proceed once we have the answer to those questions.
Okay, we have 2 weeks.
And it will give us time to put something on the agenda of the open meeting if we're going to have an open meeting on the 7th. Okay. So we will meet next week and try to figure out the best way to move forward. Anything else?
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.
Avi, your hand is up. You've already given, oh, you're down. Okay. Okay, we will meet next time. And I think the only agenda item will be the nomination process and any updates that we have.
Okay,
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
thank you very
Okay,
much.
have a good weekend.
Bye.